Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday night live stream for Week 12 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For over the course of the next hour, we're talking all things waiver wire, as I'm sure many of you are preparing for tonight's waiver wire transactions, whether you are putting in priority plays for players at the running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, etc. positions. Again, yesterday I talked about, of course, the waiver wire pickups of the week. At the video in which we put out earlier today, we talked about the top 36 running backs going into the given week. Again, there is still a lot unknown, but based on the overall situation of Josh Jacobs and his knee injury, Bucky Irving and whether or not he's going to play, and other potential long-term options, we are looking in the direction of guys like Emmanuel Wilson, a Sean Tucker. If we're looking for the longevity of the season in order to try to gain some depth in terms of running back, we would look towards guys like a Chris Rodriguez Jr. or a Bashaw Tutin. Effectively, there may be players in your league such as a Kenneth Gainwell or Devin Singletary who may be available if you're playing in a 10-team league or maybe even an 8-team league. Either way, the entire purpose of today's live stream, like we do every single Tuesday night, is in order to answer your guys' questions, set you guys up for success in regards to picking up players, and of course, making the right decisions as we go forward. Now, in regards to other positions, of course, we'll talk about quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, etc. But again, as you guys know, whether you go ahead and send in a question via the live chat and or via super chat to claim priority, as long as you include your scoring format, the more context you provide, it'll be easier for myself and of course other members of this community to help answer your questions. Hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Tuesday. Again, I'm going to say need a streamer chases out this week. SMH, I know that's a tough one. Listen, Jamar Chase is going to regret it. I think his fine was almost nearly 600K, right? It was upwards of 500 for sure, but ridiculous. Who should I get? Watson, Shakir, Mooney, or Booty? As of right now, of those available options, I feel like in terms of the immediate play in a standard scoring format that I would look to, I'd probably look towards a Christian Watson because I need yardage and I need touchdowns. Shakir is so much so relevant within the reception range. Mooney hasn't played well at all this season. Even now when we have Kirk Cousins at quarterback, it doesn't give me much hope. Kayshon Bouttie's coming off of the injury, very much so touchdown dependent as well, but at least I feel like Christian Watson has less competition to make plays going forward, especially with, of course, Jacobs dealing with a bit of a knee injury in this circumstance. Either way, that was for Mike Alvarez, I just looked at the chat, I randomly answered, but as we go forward, I'm going to go ahead and prioritize some of the super chats that were sent in just a moment. Again, a quick reminder for those of you guys who are welcomed and, of course, joining us on this wonderful Tuesday, do me a favor, click the like button down below. It's greatly appreciated. And, of course, if you guys can, be a friend, tell a friend. We are on our way to 100,000 subscribers. As long as we continue to go closer and closer to that potential, to that point, we are very close to achieving that goal this season. I cannot thank you guys enough for all the support. Okay, let's go ahead and let's begin by answering some questions that were sent in about almost 40 minutes to an hour ago, and we begin with AG. AG, hopefully you are in the area to hear this answer, but if not, hopefully you can watch the replay back. AG's questions that is in the chat goes as such. I got offered a trade of Emeka Egbuka and Chris Olave for Jamar Chase. I'm 5-6 and will be out of the playoffs if I lose. Wide receivers this week will be Jennings and Christian Watson. I have Waddle on bye. I think you should absolutely take that trade. I think Emeka Egbuka and Chris Olave give you a far greater opportunity to win this week in comparison to the potential of Jennings and Christian Watson. And yes, you have to sell Jamar Chase in order to accomplish this, but what you're getting in return, in my opinion, is worth it. Genuinely, what they are going ahead and offering is legitimately a fair trade. And yes, you may be in the desperation position, but getting Egbuka and Olave, I would have thought you would have gotten undercut even more, to which I'm really happy with the offer you're getting. If I was them, I would have offered you Egbuka and made you take it. But in the fact that you are getting the offer of Egbuka and Olave, you should take that, as it'll not only give you a greater opportunity to win this week, but once, of course, Waddle comes back, I feel like your wide receiver core is really strong, henceforth, for the remainder of the season there, AG. Thank you. All right. Linton sends it a question. Says, in a 14-team full PPR league, I've got Flacco, Mills, as in Davis Mills, Shuck, Lawrence, Rudolph, Young, or McCarthy. In a one-quarterback league going into this week, I feel like technically the most relevant piece of this group. Okay, so now that Jamar Chase is out, I don't really trust Flacco against that New England secondary. Davis Mills could be relevant again, but I'm a little bit worried about the Buffalo matchup. Tyler Shuck could be great, but I don't trust it. Rudolph, I don't trust. Bryce Young may be a one-week wonder. McCarthy can't throw the ball anywhere close to his targets. I feel like Trevor Lawrence is the answer here. I think, I mean, again, the consistency of play that he has had, even though it hasn't been the greatest, he still has scored 2+ touchdowns in 4 of the last 6 games. And in a 1 QB league, when you're taking on Arizona secondary that is dealing with as many injuries as they are, and of course the running game is going to find as much success as they will, it'll open up them more opportunities to push the ball down the field on play action opportunities. And additionally, on top of that, Brian Thomas Jr. should be available and returning this week. So Trevor Lawrence is my suggestion of the group in that regard. Thank you. Ash sends in a question. Ash, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is in a full PPR, double running back, double wide receiver, double flex format. I am 7-4. Questions in the chat. Says, should I use it this week or wait? Okay, let me actually see the full context here. Okay, so full context. Just traded Pickens and Ferguson for Jamar Chase, and I'm 5-6. Playing for the first place team this week. Pretty much sacrificed this week for long term. Thoughts on my move. Also, I have the first waiver priority. Should I use it this week or wait? My team consists of Baker, Dart, Purdy, picked up and played this last week. We have Ladd McConkey on a bye, Jamar Chase suspended, Michael Wilson, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Godwin, Bijan, Chase Brown, Charbonnet, Schultz, Aubrey, Texans, Seahawks, and Benson. I'm going to 10 team. My notable players on waiver are Juwan Johnson, Emmanuel Wilson, Gainwell, Slayton, and Mooney. Okay, so looking at the trade as a whole, I think it does put you in a very dangerous position to which if you do stack up a couple losses here, you could be in a little bit of trouble, especially giving away 2 for 1. It's always sketchy, but I'm hoping that, again, having a 5-6 record or potentially that becoming a 5-7 record isn't something that is a death kiss to your season, and that potentially picking up some wins in either week 13 or 14 can get you into the fantasy playoffs as a lower seed, maybe a 6 or 7 seed. I don't know how many teams actually make the playoffs in your league. Maybe it is 6 teams, maybe it's 8 teams. We'll see. But in regards to the trade, I don't really mind it at all, as long as you're able to at least get into the playoffs. Because if you don't get into the playoffs, then it was all for naught, right? So in regards to the potential of picking up some players here, I think Dalton Schultz should continue to be started within your lineup, especially with Davis Mills in the rotation. But my only primary issue is I don't love this matchup. I really do not against the Buffalo Bills. They are by far and away the toughest matchup at the tight end position. So I feel like, are you utilizing your waiver this week with the top priority? No. I guess it kind of gives you a better chance of winning this week in a double flex format, picking up Emmanuel Wilson in order to play him and then maybe still have a chance to win this week. Sure. If you're looking to try to accomplish it, that's the direction you go in. Otherwise, I wouldn't utilize my number 1 waiver. And when I would try to hope and wait and see if Juwan Johnson would make it off of waivers so I don't have to burn my number 1 priority in order to pick him up. So that's my current thought process. Gainwell, not interested in. Slayton, not interested in. Mooney, not interested in. So it's really just a matter of you either go for Wilson to try to win this week. Again, you're playing against the first place team this week. If you don't expect to win, then there's not really a need to pick up Emmanuel Wilson, unless you could pick him up and trade him to the Josh Jacobs manager and get some value in return. Pretty much you're trading your number 1 waiver priority for a player, and then try to wait and see if you can pick up Juwan Johnson after the fact, potentially looking to drop someone of the caliber of, I want to say going into this week, you got to get rid of one of those defenses. I don't think you need to be holding both. I mean, I guess you could, but I feel like maybe one of the quarterbacks then need to be dropped if not. Because in a 1 QB league, you don't need to have 3 unless you're going to trade one. And if you're not going to trade one, then we're probably dropping one of these guys effectively in order to at least give ourselves a better shot. At least, at this point, Baker would be the odd man out in order to go get Juwan Johnson at the end of this. Thank you. Appreciate it, Ash. All right, continuing on, we had Oni who sends in a question. Thank you very much, Oni. I appreciate it. Says, would you trade one of these running backs for Justin Jefferson? I have Kenneth Walker, Judkins, Etienne, Bucky, and Harvey available. If so, which one? Yeah, I would immediately trade away Judkins. I don't want anything to do with that Browns offense as of right now. Again, with Dylan Gabriel going down and the offense obviously not trending in the right direction in comparison to where we thought they would be going in the direction of. I know their upcoming schedule is relatively, in a solid position, but when they're a negative game script, it's pretty much going to always hurt Judkins there, to which I believe of your available running backs, he is the least valuable. So at that point, that would be the trade. It says, Adams and Diggs also available instead of Justin Jefferson. I'd still be very comfortable going after, to be honest, the way that the Vikings offense is trending, I think I'd probably feel really comfortable going after Devontae Adams there. The consistency of play which he has put forth is enough to which I'd be feeling very comfortable going in that direction instead. Thank you. Even though it is a little bit ass backwards because of the talent that Jefferson has, but the quarterback play just doesn't, it doesn't help. Gerardo says questions in the chat. Thank you, Gerardo. Says, hey man, I'm 7-4. I'm ready for the playoffs in a full PPR. My team is consisting of Baker, Christian McCaffrey. Okay, we have Baker, Prescott, Christian McCaffrey, Henry, Bucky, London, Lamb, Pittman, J-Mo, Pearsall, Kincaid, and Goddard. Add a running back? Who? I mean, if you're going to add a running back, I'm assuming you're not referencing like via trade. You're basically asking for the waiver wire if you were going to add one. Well, going forward for the remainder of the season, I mean, yes, Christian McCaffrey does have an upcoming bye week in week 14. And in order to prepare for that, you could look towards a long-term option, someone like Chris Rodriguez, who could fill in for him in that given week. Or you could look for the short term, in which if Bucky Irving doesn't play this week, maybe you go pick up someone like Sean Tucker to have the handcuff there in case anything was to happen to Bucky Irving. So I feel like picking up the handcuffs to your running backs is also a good idea if you're preparing for the fantasy playoffs. You have the insurance policies. But if you weren't going to go about it that way, picking up Emmanuel Wilson just to start him this week in case Bucky doesn't go, that's always an option. Or looking towards the long-term value of someone like Chris Rodriguez, who would theoretically be the starting running back of Washington rest of way with an advantageous playoff schedule there in 2 of the 3 weeks. That could also help fill in for Christian McCaffrey week 14, theoretically. Looking at the upcoming schedule for the Commanders, let me just check here. In regards to the Commanders' schedule for Week 14, that would be filling in. They would be taking on Minnesota, which again have gotten absolutely mollywopped in terms of trying to stop the run lately. So, yeah, I don't mind that idea in terms of looking for long-term or looking for short-term or looking for handcuff upside. Any which way you want to go about it. If I was in your position, I don't think I need to have I don't think I need to have the long-term player or the short-term player. I'd rather have my handcuffs. So if I can go out there and legitimately pick up Sean Tucker or Brian Robinson Jr., that's what I am prioritizing. Or Pierce or Watson rest of season. Or Pierce or Watson for rest of season. I mean, look, Pierce is the answer here. But in regards to like the wide receivers you have, London, Lamb, Pittman, and J-Mo, like ultimately, Lamb, Pittman, and J-Mo are going to start until London comes back. And unless you're in a triple wide receiver one flex or double wide receiver double flex league, you don't need this either because he'd probably never play. And you have all your players past bye weeks. So ultimately, it's just a matter of securing your handcuffs. And then in the event in which you can get a Pierce for free, sure, you can get him and maybe ship him off in a trade if it's still available. Thank you. Jerome Hill says, I'm 5-6 in a 10-team full PPR. Questions in the chat. Thank you. Okay. Says, hey, Andrew, appreciate the content and the advice. Sounds good. Thank you very much, Jerome. I appreciate that. Drop Pearsall, Quentin Johnston, or Alec Pierce for Michael Wilson. Other wide receivers are Rice, Diggs, and Sutton. Of your available options here, I'm of the opinion that I want to give Pearsall another week. Again, this most recent week's overall contributions in terms of his overall play, I don't think really represents what he could provide for rest of season because you got to think about it this way. It was his first week back from injury, still trying to kind of get his legs underneath him, obviously coming off of a knee injury at that. So I feel like it's not really going to represent him the best. I don't want to get rid of Alec Pierce. And I really don't want to get rid of Quentin Johnston or Pearsall because the way that I think about it, like unless we're going to end up seeing Marvin Harrison miss a significant volume of time, maybe 2 or 3 more weeks here, I feel like Michael Wilson can only service maybe one more solid week. Then he's going to be diminished in his overall role. And once he is diminished, is he going to be more valuable than a Pearsall, Quentin Johnston in the late stages of the season? I want to say probably not, to which at that point, I feel like it might just be better off holding what you have. It's kind of the position that I'm in right now. Unless we have some sort of word on Marvin Harrison missing more time because of the appendix surgery, I feel like it's not necessary to make a move in this circumstance. If you were, now looking at this week, right? You have Rice back. You do have Sutton and Quentin Johnston on a bye, but in this case, you're just going to play Rice, Diggs, and Alec Pierce. So if you wanted to pick up and play Michael Wilson because you're like, Andrew, I'm 5-6, I need to try to secure a win. At that point, I could understand it. And at that point, I would probably drop Sutton or Quentin Johnston. Genuinely, I think I might consider dropping Sutton. As much as I want to, I probably won't, and I would rather sacrifice Quentin Johnston if I was going to make this move. So if we're like, all right, Marvin Harrison's going to be out this week. If I get a win this week, it gets me one step closer to the fantasy playoffs. If I lose, I'm going to get out. Then at that point, yes, we would mortgage and completely sell Quentin Johnston in order to bring in Michael Wilson for this week to try to help you win. Thank you. Mean the Bush sends out a question. Thank you very much. Says full PPR running backs are JT, Saquon, Harvey, Henderson, Dowdle. Wide receivers are Ladd, Pearsall, Wan'Dale Robinson, Addison, and Judy. Looking for a wide receiver, who to trade? Who do I trade for? If you're going to trade for a wide receiver, I think it's a really good idea as of this moment to try to go buy Rome Odunze, considering his lack of consistency of production of late. Again, if I look at the rest of the field here, In terms of your wide receiver position, I love having Ladd McConkey in terms of the rest of season, but everybody else is a little bit sketchier. Pearsall sketchy. Wanda Robinson needs Jackson Dart back. Addison, very much so, very sketchy. Judy, not even playable. I mean, at this point, not really startable at all. So really just have one solid wide receiver, and everything else is a bit of a question mark. In a full PPR, Wanda Robinson, as soon as Jackson Dart comes back, solid top 30 options. So you have two top 30 wide receivers. The rest of them kind of need to earn it. In regards to Addison's lack of production as of late, even though he does get bailed out with a touchdown recently, I don't love it. If I'm trading for a wide receiver, yeah, I'm going after a Rome Odunze player. If not him, technically in terms of rest of season strength of schedule at wide receiver, which I would try to prioritize in order to try to guide me towards players who are going to be in a little bit of a greater position to find success in the future. Specifically, if I'm looking at like rest of season schedule here, I mean, at this point, Devontae Smith, if someone's trying to sell low on him, because again, he's coming off of a rough week. Rome Odunze, rough week. Amon-Ra coming off of a rough week. I know I'm throwing out like really valuable names, but you never know. Devontae Adams coming off of a rough week. You can go theoretically buy Jalen Waddle right now if the team in your league has Jalen Waddle, needs to win this week and doesn't have the capabilities of rostering a good enough wide receiver in his stead. Again, I'd go after Jamar Chase if someone is struggling in your league with that. You could try to go buy low right now on the potential of someone like, theoretically, DK Metcalf, as he has been a little bit lackluster recently. That's kind of that would be the immediate thoughts as of right now. If you were going to go after those receivers, I mean, again, it's going to be really hard to even justify it, but maybe you can get away with giving Wandell and Addison away for 2 for 1. In terms of if they're interested, of course. Thank you. Michael De La Torre sends out a question. Thank you very much, Michael. Says, trade Puka and Hendo to upgrade to Chase at wide receiver. My other running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Dowdle, and Harvey. No. It's not an upgrade. I don't see it being an upgrade in any capacity. So I think keeping Puka and Hendo wins you the championship. Not worth it. Keep Puka Nakua, keep Henderson. It's not close. It's genuinely not close. Keep Puka and Hendo going forward. Thank you, Michael. Fantasy Forecast says Herbie and Caleb as my quarterbacks, Bucky, Javonte, Benson, and Hendo at running back, London, Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, and T. Higgins, Ferguson, Gadsden. Decimated by injuries, just traded RJ Harvey for T. Higgins, moves to make with no fab. I mean, in regards to the moves that you could theoretically make, I mean, obviously Henderson and Javonte will start this week, as long as, of course, Bucky Irving is out. Maybe Bucky could vie for a potential option there as a flex play, but obviously Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, great. Gadsden will obviously be on bye this week, so we'll have Ferguson. Looking at your team as a whole, again, I'm not really too worried about the situation here. Obviously, I'd like to try to get a better quarterback than Caleb Williams this week. Maybe try to go pick up Jacoby Brissett if potentially possible. But outside of this situation, I'm holding what you have. Because as long as you're in a position to make the playoffs, and London will eventually come back by hopefully week 15 through 17, I think you're in a really solid position here with the current roster that you have under your current tenure here as the manager of your roster here. So as of right now, not too worried about it. I know that you think you're decimated by injury. I know that, of course, London being out is certainly not ideal, but ultimately, I'm not really too worried about it. I look at this team and I think to myself, if I'm starting Javonte Henderson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, T. Higgins, and Ferguson this week, I'm in a really good position to win. Thank you. James Grover says a question. Thank you, James. Says, I need to add one running back for long-term in a full PPR. Rank in order, best to worst overall available. Sean Tucker, Tyrone Tracy, Trey Benson, Singletary, Wilson, and Tootin. Long-term, it's not close. It's Tyrone Tracy 10 times out of 10. In terms of the next best option, in terms of a long-term vision, it would theoretically then be Trey Benson, number 2, and then technically Bayshaw Tootin, number 3, Sean Tucker, number 4, Wilson, number 5, Singletary, number 6. So as of right now, that's the direction in which I would go with. Tyrone Tracy 1, and either Trey Benson, assuming we get some sort of news by tomorrow. Otherwise, maybe just Bayshaw Tootin and hope that his ankle's good. But both these players are a little bit hobbled as of late. But Tracy, by far and away, is your best available option to pick up. Try to get him. Thank you. Romeo sends in a question. Says, thoughts on Genty for rest of season, buy low in a half PPR? I mean, looking at the upcoming schedule ahead for the Las Vegas Raiders running game, they have Cleveland, the Chargers, Denver, Philadelphia, Houston, and the New York Giants. So even though the next 2 weeks should be solid for the efforts of Genti, taking on Denver week 14, Philadelphia week 15, Houston week 16. I feel like I'd be out of the playoffs by then. I feel like the rest of season strength of schedule for Ashton Genti is not ideal, to which I'm not interested in buying low on him. Fantasy Forecast says, other team trade my Bijan and Puka for Gibbs and Pickens. Oh, that's an interesting question. So basically you're saying, is Bijan dead now that, of course, Penix is out for the season? To which I would say, I don't know if I would go as far as to making this trade to accomplish that kind of a turn, but no, I think I'm going to keep Bijan and Puka going forward in this circumstance. Thank you. LZ7 says, in a double flex full PPR 5 and 6 10-man league, Baker, Judkins. Okay, so let's see what the roster is. Okay, Baker, Judkins, Irving, JSN, Pearsall, Theo, Tez, Loveland. Bench consisting of Dart, Jamar. We have Harvey, Monungai, Sutton, Vidal, Garrett Wilson, and Hampton. I trade Chase, Judkins, Sutton for Kyron and Etienne. Yeah, at 5 and 6 in a double flex format, what you're getting in return to try to help you salvage your season to make the fantasy playoffs, I think is probably a really solid kind of haul in this circumstance. Even though I do believe that this side technically has arguably more value in a full PPR double flex format, I think what you're getting in return is so substantial for what your current roster looks like that it is worth taking, because it will help you get that 6th win and then subsequently make the next 2 weeks, week 13 and 14, that much easier to try to make the fantasy playoffs. Because again, obviously Sutton with a bye week, Chase with suspension. I think it's worth it, LZ, to be honest. I think it is. Again, your wide receiver core from that point forward would look like, of course, JSN with trying to figure out, am I going to play someone like, Tej Johnson this week, or hitting the waiver wire, or maybe playing Pearsall. But ultimately, at running back rest of season, Kyron, Etienne, Irving. And then maybe once Hampton comes back, if he's healthy, he can fill in if needed for one of those three. Harvey's great. I would probably say, like, if I could get one of these running backs and a wide receiver in return, it'd be a little bit better off. But if I can't, I'm still willing to make this move in hopes that, again, I can win this week in a desperate scenario. The man 0907 says, hi, Andrew, questions in the chat. Half PPR, start 7. Okay. Says, I have JSN, Higgins, Sutton, Wando Robinson. My running backs are Jacobs and Wilson, Dowdle, Chase Brown, Judkins. Should I try to trade Judkins and Sutton for Nico? Yes, immediately. I would. I'd feel very comfortable doing so. Or Chase Brown and Sutton. No. Listen. You want to keep Chase Brown. Chase Brown is the more valuable running back rest of the season because the expectation is that Joe Burrow should be returning soon. And in the event in which Joe Burrow returns in week 13, they have an upcoming schedule of Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, and Arizona, in which all those games, I would anticipate to see a lot of value in the direction of all of the Cincinnati Bengals, Chase, Higgins, and of course, Chase Brown. So in this case, I do believe that moving Judkins and Sutton would be the more viable approach. Unsure about Nico long-term, I'm not worried about it. In this overall situation, looking at the upcoming schedule for Nico Collins, as we kind of proceed forward, for the fantasy playoffs, he has Arizona, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles Chargers. I feel like after we get past the next couple weeks here of Buffalo, Indy, Kansas City, those are the real tough games. Arizona, Las Vegas, Los Angeles Chargers, I'm not too worried about with his certain circumstance. Thank you. Cutie Miles sends in a question. Says, what do I do with Drake London? I'm 5 and 6 in a full PPR with wide receivers Pickens, Tetaroa, and Addison. My running backs are Henderson, Monungai, and Charbonnet, and Hampton. I mean, as of right now, if you believe that you can win this week, which looking at your roster, I believe you can win this week with Pickens, Tet, and Addison at wide receiver, Henderson, Charbonnet, and Monungai at running back. In the event in which you believe you can win this week, then you keep him. And you hope that when you get to the fantasy playoffs, he'll be returning for then on. But in the event in which, again, you are worried about the ability of being able to win this week, then you ship him off. You sell him as much as you possibly can to someone that is going to make the playoffs, selling him under the expectation of, hey, he's going to be back for the fantasy playoffs. You're basically buying low on a wide receiver that has gone 7 consecutive games of 100 receiving yards here. So you try to buy low on that. So ultimately, if you think you can win, you hold. Otherwise, you got to sell it and try to get some value in return. As to who you can get is purely dependent on who is on the roster of a team that is willing to trade for him. That's really just going to be the overall expectation there. S-Box sends in a question. Says, I'm 5 and 6 and in 9th place. Ideas for trades for waiver wire moves. I have the number 1 waiver to make before the deadline. My team is in the chat. Okay, let's see what you have here, brother. It says, my team is Nix and Stafford. Okay, so you're starting Stafford rest of the season. I think you could drop Nix. I'm going to be honest. Genti, Walker, Rashad White, Monungai, AJ Brown, Flowers, Franklin, Washington, Kittle, Kincaid. I think you can drop Kincaid as well. So, I mean, obviously, you're going to have to fill in for Kittle in week 14. The Buffalo Bills in week 14 have Cincinnati. Keep Kincaid. Never mind. Redact that statement. They have Cincinnati. Okay, so in this circumstance, you can drop Knicks because I am confident in the upcoming schedule of the Rams, looking really solid ahead. Again, when you have Tampa Bay, Carolina, Arizona, and you're trying to make the fantasy playoffs, those are 3 great weeks for the potential of Matthew Stafford, who is a zone killer, and all those teams are playing a lot of zone coverage. So, in regards to the potential of Stafford, that's beautiful. Running back, Gentry's not looking great, but the next 2 weeks, I think will set you up for success. Fantasy playoff-wise, not great. Kenneth Walker, obviously trending in the right direction. Rashad White, not startable. Monangai, flexible per se. A.J. Brown's not looking great. Flowers isn't looking great. Franklin's been, quite frankly, your most consistent receiver. To which in this scenario, if you're going to make some moves, you're hitting the waiver wire and probably picking up Michael Wilson. Or if Alec Pierce is out there somehow, some way, you're picking him up as your number 1 waiver priority. If neither of those are available, maybe we're looking towards a Christian Watson. We try to potentially put together a position to where we at least have a little bit more wide receiver depth to help us out. Now, in the event in which, again, you know, those players aren't even available, you could just go and pick up with number 1 waiver wire priority, Emmanuel Wilson, in order to give you a little bit more depth at flex, to which you can start Genty Walker and then flex Emmanuel Wilson this week for a 1-week pickup and play, assuming Jacobs is out for at least just 1 week. Otherwise, I do think maybe Michael Wilson is, you know, the next best option, assuming Alec Pierce isn't available there. Outside of those kind of moves, in terms of utilizing number 1 waiver priority, I don't think there's a necessity to go after anybody else in terms of number 1 waiver ripping in that scenario. But in terms of other trade ideas, I mean, at this moment, I don't know if anybody's looking to try to trade for an A.J. Brown or a Flowers. So really, at this point, you're kind of stuck in your position to where you just have to hope these players play better. You can go out there in your league and ask if someone is looking for, you know, an option to where they can trade for an A.J. Brown and Flowers, but I don't think it's going to be pulling much of interest considering they haven't done enough consistently to justify the means of making a trade for them. At least that's from my perspective. Maybe someone in your league thinks differently, and maybe they'd be interested. And if they are, could get out from underneath them. I do like the potential schedule here ahead for the Eagles. Of course, taking on Dallas, Chicago in the next 2 weeks, very much so vital for the potential of your season. And of course, the Ravens' upcoming schedule here. We have a couple games of Cincinnati's matchups, but in terms of this week, the Jets, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, I think those are all great games for his upside. So, again, as of right now, pick up Michael Wilson, Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce, number 1, Michael Wilson, 2, if you're looking for the wide receiver play. But if you're just, I mean, and those could be players that genuinely, if I had to order it, I'd probably go Alec Pierce, 1. If you're playing in a full PPR, Michael Wilson, 2, Emmanuel Wilson, 3. Thank you. Mo Money sends it a question. Thank you, Mo. I appreciate it. Mo says, send Alvin Kamara for Hampton or Purdy and Alvin Kamara for Jalen Hurts. Team is below. 6-5, 10-team, full PPR redraft, double wide receiver, double running back, double flex. Quarterback is Purdy, Henry, Travion, Judkins, Alvin Kamara, Harvey, Algier. So we would theoretically be moving Alvin Kamara to bring in Hampton. I would be more than happy to make that trade. I wouldn't mind it, but this is what I will say. I think the fantasy playoff schedule for Alvin Kamara is so incredibly advantageous that he could be someone that just wins you the league outright, taking on Carolina, the New York Jets, and Tennessee. Now, again, there's a lot of uncertainty there because Alvin Kamara hasn't been super consistent, but in comparison to playing Hampton in the fantasy playoffs to begin the fantasy playoffs in week 15 with Kansas City, not sure if I love that scenario, and I don't love the week 17 matchup either against Houston. Dallas is decent week 16 for a shootout potential, but ultimately, if I was going to make a trade, I don't mind this. I actually really do. Actually, it's probably not as ideal as maybe going after this trade, but I don't even want to trade for Jalen Hurts in this circumstance. I think I'd rather genuinely just keep what you have. I don't really like either of these trades. Typically, I would be comfortable going for Hampton here, but I think Alvin Kamara actually, considering Hampton is a little bit up in the air in terms of his return, I think I'm just holding. Leo sends in a question, says, would you trade Andrews in a package for Bowers? Although Andrews has way better quarterback and schedule, is giving away the required assets worth it? Would it be trade Andrews in a package for Bowers? I think it's just a matter of what the package consists of, brother. I mean, at this point, in the event in which you are sending away not only Mark Andrews, but also another starter in your lineup, I wouldn't say it's worth it at that point, because I don't know if Bowers is going to haul enough fantasy point contribution on a weekly basis going forward for me to justify moving 2 starters for just 1 player, right? Unless you have the depth to justify it, I would probably just keep with Mark Andrews considering his touchdown potential for upside and his consistency of play. Andrew Mitchell sends it a question. Says, I'm 6-5 and I'm ranked in 5th. The whole league is 6-5 and 5-6 in head-to-head tiebreakers. Already lost to week 12 through 14 opponents. Lineup this week. Thoughts for rest of season. Team is in the chat. We have May, Purdy, Burrow, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Brown, Swift, Hall, London, Pickens, Diggs, Tetaroa. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, standard, 6 point per passing touchdown. Have Loop in the Hawks defense. Appreciate it. It's a really good looking team, brother. I'm going to be honest. I think as a whole, it's a solid team to say the very least. I think Christian McCaffrey and Brown do justice every week. I think in terms of the wide receiver position, even with London missing time, I think Pickens, Diggs, and Tetaroa servicing as your 2 wide receivers in flex going forward is very much so going to be of success. And what Purdy and May can provide, I mean, I don't think you even need Burrow for rest of season purposes, but having him to block other teams from having him is great. I think going into this week, probably based on matchup alone, I feel really comfortable playing Drake May in that circumstance. So May with Christian McCaffrey, Chase Brown, Pickens, Diggs, and Tetaroa, just keep rolling it, brother. I don't think you need to make any crazy moves here. I think the roster is set in place to where it's really solid. The only thing that I'm ever worried about is the Jets' schedule. The New York Jets going forward, again, with the quarterback change, it could shift the tides. But, I mean, really, we have to, like, if, in fact, we can get to week 13, taking on Atlanta, then week 14, Miami, then week 15, Jacksonville, week 16, New Orleans, I feel like those are good enough matchups for him to be of value, Breece Hall. But otherwise, you could look to try to move him. Otherwise, keep it as is. If maybe someone wants to trade for London, you can. Otherwise, I think you have enough on roster right now to survive and keep it moving. Thank you. Carlos Z says, what's up, Andrew? Rate my team for rest of season in a half PPR 10-team league. I'm 4-7. Sai. It's in the chat, brother. All right, let's see what you have here. Says I have Flacco, Knicks, Herbert. Okay, so Herbert being on a bye is a really tough position because both Knicks and Herbert are on bye. Flacco's your only starting quarterback. Probably need to try to go pick up a quarterback this week. So if you need to drop Knicks and Flacco to try to go pick up 2 players, potentially of Jacoby Brissett, and then subsequently after another player for the rest of your roster, let's do that. In regards to the rest of your team, St. Brown, McMillan, Debo. You have Michael Wilson. Okay, so you'll have a pretty good wide receiver stable here. You have Henderson, Genty, K9, Judkins, Theo Johnson, McLaughlin. Okay, trying to pick up Jawan Johnson and drop Theo Johnson. I honestly wouldn't mind keeping Theo because, again, Jackson Dart could return, but in the event in which he doesn't, then yes, I'm okay with Jawan Johnson there. In regards to your overall situation, though, really solid position. Again, I'm trying to move Flacco and Knicks off my roster. I am probably in your position trying to go pick up Emmanuel Wilson and then also try to pick up Jacoby Brissett, to which then I can start Jacoby Brissett this week with Emmanuel Wilson and with Henderson as my 1-2 combo there, RB. Then start St. Brown, Michael Wilson, McMillan, and then if I have another potential available spot there in a double flex format, then I can throw in like a Kenneth Walker and just keep it rolling. But that's my immediate thought process on the matter. If none of those are available and no Emmanuel Wilson, no Jacoby Brissett, then yes, technically going after the tight end position will be a solid position. And then I would try to look to maybe go after maybe a Trevor Lawrence, maybe a Bryce Young and get cheeky with it. Thank you. Boy Blue sends in a question. Says playoffs clinched. Who are the best defensive stashes for the playoffs? Tampa Bay and New Orleans, not close. I says I have Houston's on roster. Was looking to add Cleveland this week. Should I drop Tez Johnson to drop Houston's defense? No, I don't think you should drop Houston's defense. I think in that point, you should probably drop Tez Johnson instead. Even though I don't love the idea of dropping Tez in the event in which you're not going to play him. Says my wide receivers are Jamar, J-Mo, and Tez. Yeah. So as long as you don't see yourself playing Tez Johnson this week, and considering you do have a Tedero McMillan bye week in week 14, so you might want to hold on to Tez for that week. Obviously, you have to look at the roster that you have and kind of address the overall situation there. But as of right now, in regards to the rest of season for Houston and their upcoming schedule ahead, purely just having the fantasy playoffs of Arizona, Las Vegas, and Los Angeles Chargers, I feel like that is a defense that I would like to hold for the fantasy playoffs and roll them every single game there. But in the event in which, again, you're looking for a pivot this week, yeah, Cleveland's a great option. And Tez Johnson will be the drop there because I don't want to drop Houston's defense, as I think they have a better position than what the other alternatives of the New Orleans Saints and Tampa Bay Buccaneers would provide in that short span of the fantasy playoffs. Flotation says check cord. Okay, let me see what you have here, brother. Okay, so let's see what you sent over here, brother. It says number one. Okay, so priority. We'll be running a waiver for streaming defense. Would you personally pick up the Browns or Steelers? As of this week, let me see what the Steelers have done lately in terms of production. DST 2025, week 11. Pittsburgh's done 21-5-18. So they've been a really solid defense in the last 3 weeks. Taking on Chicago is a lot more difficult than theoretically taking on Geno Smith. So personally, can I justify the idea of playing Cleveland over Pittsburgh? I mean, I want to assume that they'll be able to kind of put together another big performance there. Yeah, if it's me, I think I feel really comfortable with the idea of just rolling Cleveland there, personally. I could justify also playing Pittsburgh, but I think Cleveland's the way that I want to go about it, because I think there's still a chance that like the Bears can show up and play pretty well. Okay, so in regards to prioritizing that defense, I'm not trying to spend too much. If anything, I would spend like a couple dollars on both, maybe like $2-3 on both the Browns and Steelers defenses, because as long as I get one, I'm happy. So I'm not trying to spend too much on them, especially if you don't have too much fab available. As for your second question, it says, would you genuinely drop DJ Moore for Tootin or Sean Tucker? I can try to get off the waiver for Tucker or hold. Just feel a little bit off about dropping him. Unfortunately, he hasn't done much though. Yeah, listen, if you don't want to drop him, you don't have to. Again, you're not going to need him this week, and you're not going to need Tucker or Sutton. But technically, not Sutton, Tootin or Tucker. But in the event in which, for example, Bucky Irving was not to play this week, I think Sean Tucker would be a viable option for your lineup this week. That being said, I don't think you need to make a swap in that circumstance. I don't think it's a necessary. I think it's a if you want to, you can. Assuming Dart plays, would you drop Mills or Shuck? I would drop Mills because I don't expect Mills to come back after the Thursday night game. I would assume that CJ Stroud will be back after the concussion protocol by then. So Shuck would be the guy that I hold, especially with New Orleans' schedule in the fantasy playoffs being as advantageous as it is. Taking on Carolina, New York Jets, and Tennessee, yeah, Shuck would be the guy that I would like to have. Thank you, Flotation. Appreciate it. Oni says he countered with Justin Jefferson and Stafford for my Judkins and Lawrence. I have Lamar. He declined Adams. So he wants to give you Jefferson and Stafford for Judkins and Lawrence? I meant Judkins and Stafford for Justin. Okay, got it. So you switched it up. Okay, so let me see here. So looking at the overall situation here, you'd be sending away Judkins, but you'd also have to be giving away Stafford. But you have Lamar. Yeah, so here's the reality. I don't mind this trade. I don't mind it at all. I know giving away Stafford hurts, but I think Lamar's I'd rather have Lamar rest season, genuinely. Especially with the fantasy playoff schedule the way it's set. Yes, I would be very comfortable taking the Jefferson side of this deal going forward. Thank you. Appreciate it, Oni. Valk sends in a question. Thank you very much. Valk says, 5 and 6 in a full PPR. I have Bo Nix, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Gadsden, Shakir, DJ Moore, Franklin, Tez, Woody, Kenneth Walker, Chuba, Singletary, and Bill. Should I go for Wilson or Chris Rodriguez? Any recommendations? Yes, you should drop Bill for Chris Rodriguez Jr. So Chris Rodriguez should be picked up. And then I would also go about potentially even picking up Wilson in terms of Emmanuel Wilson. Could he start for you this week with having the roster consisting of, what is your running back depth? Woody Marks and Kenneth Walker. Technically, I do think that in terms of long-term value, Chris Rodriguez is the better pickup. But I think in terms of the short term, at a 5 and 6 record, picking up Emmanuel Wilson and being able to start him this week, I think is the priority. So I would drop JCM in order to pick up Wilson, and then I would drop DJ Moore in order to pick up CR. That's how I'd go about it. Thank you. Joel Garza sends out a question. This is full PPR. Parker Washington, Worthy, Chuba on the bench. Who do I drop for Emmanuel Wilson? Okay, in terms of these available options, technically speaking, Chuba Hubbard would be the drop, considering he is clearing away the backup and handcuff there. Unless you do have Rico Dowdle, I don't think I need to have that handcuff on roster effectively. I think Xavier Worthy is also very much so droppable. I wouldn't say that Parker Washington is as of yet. Says also, who's a good pivot for Pinheiro who's injured? Everyone give it up for Andrew. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Joel. As of the overall available options, if Michael Badgley's out there or Cairo Santos is out there, that's who I go and pick up for this week and going forward. Thank you. Luke C sends out a question. Says, I have Trey Benson on my IR. I'm thinking about dropping a lot of fab, like 50% on Bam, to control the Cardinals' backfield. Thoughts? How much percentage of fab? Sean Tucker Gainwell. I mean, as of right now, In terms of rest of season potential, I look at the upcoming schedule for the Arizona Cardinals, and it doesn't really excite me in terms of the rushing capacity, especially once you get to like week 14, the Rams, week 15, Houston, week 16 and 17, there's value, but I would assume by then, I'd assume that Trey Benson, is going to be back. So in regards to the overall positioning here, am I spending fab percentage on who's Shan? Let me see, Luke. Either way, Tucker is, I think you meant Sean Tucker, right? I think that's what you meant. So anyway, in the event in which you can go get Tucker, am I dropping a 50% fab on Bam? No, I'm not. I don't think it's that valuable, genuinely. I think if you're in a super desperate position to where you need running back depth, then sure, you can make that kind of a move. But honestly, I don't think there's a necessity to drop that much percentage. But I do think that fab percentage, even though it's like, I may say 50% is too much, there may be a contingency in your league in which they're willing to spend that much. And if that's how much it's going to cost you. And if it does, then maybe you make this move. But ultimately, in terms of going after a running back, again, Gainwell is contingent on the absence. I mean, all three running backs are contingent on the absence of their starters. I think Bam is the most valuable of the bunch because Trey Benson's return is a little bit sketchier. But in the long term, yes, he has more value than these two. Technically, maybe, at most, it should be like 22%. At most, brother. At most. Even that's too much. Bob says, full PPR, drop Mason or Monangai based on rest of season schedule. I'd rather drop Mason, genuinely. It's not even a matter of schedule. Like upcoming schedule ahead, I do think that there is a more advantageous position, technically based on what I'm looking at, for the rushing attack of the Minnesota Vikings, with their upcoming schedule of weeks 14 through 17 looking like Washington, Dallas, New York, and Detroit, in comparison to the Bears schedule throughout that exact same span of time, having Green Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay, and San Francisco. I do believe that Mason has the better schedule, but I don't believe he's going to be the more valuable fantasy asset. Death to Ming sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team half PPR, I need to pick up a wide receiver to play as my wide receiver 2 because of Lad McConkey and Waddle out on bye week. Best options on the waiver wire are Mooney, Yoshi Voss. I have Slayton in my IR slot. Who do I play? Any other recommendations or any other wide receivers you like? If none of the wide receivers I mentioned on yesterday's waiver wire episode are potentially available, you could go in the direction of potentially picking up Mooney, as that would probably be my highest ranked player. He will be ranked in my top 36 tomorrow. He has to be. He's going to be the only wide receiver in that offense of any value in a matchup in which they should be throwing the ball a consistent volume against the New Orleans Saints. So I would be picking up Mooney. That should be your prioritization. Thank you, Death. Appreciate it. Landon Ramirez says, drop Bo Nix and Darnold for Burrow and Brissett. I would. That's perfectly fine by me. You can survive playing the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, for the next 3 weeks here. Jacksonville and Tampa Bay the next 2 weeks here. In the event in which he misses another game, you can still play him against the LA Rams. As long as you don't have to play him in the fantasy playoffs against Houston in week 15, that's fine. So yes, I'm okay making this swap. Jake Perez says, hey man, in a 12-team full PPR, I have Kyron, Dowdle, Warren, Henderson. Was offered Bijan for Kyron and Hendo. Crazy for hesitating? I think you're not crazy for hesitating, but if I was in your position, I'd be very much so willing to make a trade of this capacity. I do feel like, yes, the absence of, technically, Michael Penix is very much so going to diminish the value of Bijan Robinson. Is it to the point to where I'm like, oh, I'm completely off of the Bijan Robinson trade for rest season? No, it's not there. But I do believe he is downgraded. As of right now, looking at rest of season potential, technically speaking, I think the trade is moving, Henderson. Even though I do think his value is so high right now, that would be the sell high kind of purpose. You move him now in order to get Bijan for the future. And even though Henderson's got an incredible schedule ahead, the potential looming threat of Ramondre is what worries me. And that's why I'd rather move him than Kyron. So like when I look at the upcoming schedule for the Patriots, yes, their fantasy playoff schedule consists of Buffalo, Baltimore, New York Jets. But because of that week 14 bye as well, I'm willing to make the move where I would go ahead and I would send away Henderson to bring in Bijan there. Thank you, brother. It says, should lock playoffs in week or 2? Thanks. Yeah, as of right now, also, yeah, by moving Hendo, you pretty much solidify yourself with 2 running backs rest of the way with these, you have Dowdle, Warren, and Hendo. Oh, what am I looking at? Okay, hold on, wait. Why did I even skip on Dowdle and Warren here. Yeah, brother, you make this trade. I think it's worth it because you still have Dowdle in that circumstance as well. I make it. That's what I would do. I would. Thank you. Julian Figueroa says, "What's up? I'm 7-4. My running backs are Harvey, K9, and Marks. My wide receivers are Pickens, Puka, and Diggs, Michael Wilson, and Shakir. Ferguson and Kincaid, what moves to make in a 12-team full PPR?" Brother, I think you're in a really solid position here. I mean, again, I think Harvey this most recent week wasn't very much so of the value which he's going to represent going forward, especially once they do come back. Looking at their upcoming schedule of Washington and Las Vegas, I do think there's going to be a lot of value to be had from Harvey in the absence of Dobbins on the injured reserve. So I think your running back position is very solid. I'm not making any moves here unless someone wants to buy high on Kenneth Walker off of your hands. Otherwise, looking at wide receiver, Pickens, Puka should be your starting 1 and 2. Diggs should be your flex every single week rest season. Ferguson's great for rest of season as well. I don't think there's a move that is necessary. At 7-4, I could potentially say, hey, go and trade for Jamar Chase right now. If there was someone in your league that is going to, take Pickens and they'll give you Jamar Chase, go make that move. If there's someone in your league that is missing on Jalen Waddle and they're willing to take Wilson and Shakir as that combo, fantastic. Let's make that move. I would go after teams that are desperate for wins right now and are dealing with injuries, bye weeks, or suspensions, to which you can take advantage of their misfortune by trading lesser options for greater players in a 2-for-1 capacity. Thank you. Mark sends in a question. Thank you, Mark. Says, I lost 2 weeks in a row because of Darnold. Is he safe this week? I don't know if he's safe. I'm going to be honest. Taking on the Tennessee Titans, there could be one of two potential options. He throws 4 touchdowns or he scores 0 fantasy points because he literally throws the ball 10 times and they win 40-0. That is the worry that I have with Darnold. He could either blow up or he could disappear because they're either getting their asses whooped or they're winning so badly they don't need him to throw the ball. To which I would look to another alternative option, hopefully Jacoby Brissett available out there. Says pick one tight end to pick up off of the waivers, Mason Taylor, K. Dotton, or Colston Loveland. Of those available options, I would love to pick up K. Dotton, especially considering what most recently AJ Barner was able to accomplish against the LA Rams, in which Otten could potentially expound upon that this week. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, y'all. We have Landon Ramirez sends in a follow-up. Says, praise Guru and other questions in the chat. Thank you very much, Landon. Says, I'm thinking about dropping the Patriots and keep the Browns for the rest of the season. Dropping Loveland for Strange on IR. I've got Schultz just in case. That's perfectly fine. I don't mind the overall move of Loveland for Strange. I've got to make room for Scary Terry with the Patriots drop too. Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. There's no problem with that at all. Thank you. Those are all perfectly great moves that you need to make in order to kind of settle your roster for the future. All right, we've been here for about 50 minutes, 51 minutes. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Let me go ahead and see what's going on in the live chat so we can help you guys out. Again, if you guys are joining us this wonderful Tuesday, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys spending your time here. Again, I'll try to answer as many questions as I possibly can as we go forward. Emily Doyle says, I have $21. I'm dropping $11 on Emmanuel because I have Jacobs. Does that make sense? I would say that it makes sense to maybe even spend more. I think if you know your league best, obviously more than I do, if you believe that 11 can get it done, go that way. If you don't, and you think that it may cost you a little bit more, I would say that there's a really good reality in which maybe you should spend like upwards of 16 if you're in a desperate position to where you need to win this week, and the absence of Jacobs could be very much so detrimental. If not, and 11 gets it done, then that's perfectly fine. Mickey says, I have Bucky and White on my bench. Do I pick up Sean Tucker or Emmanuel Wilson? I think you should probably pick up both. Genuinely, if you can pick up if you could pick up Sean Tucker and drop White, and then subsequently also, and then subsequently get, Emmanuel Wilson after the fact, because I would prioritize Sean Tucker. This is my logic on the matter. You do have Bucky, and his handcuff is now Sean Tucker. So therefore, going forward, it's probably in your best interest to have that handcuff on roster rather than a 1-week play with Emmanuel Wilson. So as of right now, I'm willing to go after Tucker, pair him up with Bucky, and drop White. In the event in which you cannot get Tucker, then you would go after Emmanuel Wilson second. Landon, we took care of that. Good to go there. Joseph Mice says, hope you're doing well in all your leagues. Thank you very much. I am. Thank you. Austin Davis says, in an 8-man league, would you rather trade Tet and London for Bijan or London, May, and Chase Brown for Gibbs? Wow, that's an interesting question. I have Josh Allen, Saquon, tons of RBs, and Puka and Rashee Rice. So as of right now, looking at the overall situation of what you have and what you'd be giving away, I would feel really comfortable. Okay, so if you believe that you have a ton of RBs, then I probably make this trade in which I get Gibbs. If you don't truly have a bunch of RBs, then at that point, you go after Bijan. But personally, I prefer to go after Gibbs because I think Gibbs is a better option than Bijan rest of the season. Thank you. Gainwell or Algier better cut for rest of the season? My beautiful bearded king. Thanks, Matt. I think technically speaking, based on the fact that, of course, Jaylen Warren is dealing with an injury, there is a possibility of a re-aggravation of said injury to which Gainwell would theoretically be the better handcuff in this circumstance. Angel says, I need a kicker for this week. Should I drop Pinheiro for Fairbairn? I don't know if Fairbairn's playing on Thursday. He hasn't played in each of the last 2 weeks because of a quad injury, so kind of have to keep that monitored as we go into tomorrow. So I'm not sure if I'm making that swap. I'd rather go after Michael Badgley if he's available, the kicker for the Colts. Michael sends in a question. Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it, brother. When you get an opportunity to type it in the live chat, appreciate it. The man 0907 says, thoughts on Brandon Aubrey this season? I've been sticking with him, but it's a bit underwhelming. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a bit underwhelming, but technically speaking, still one of the better kickers in the league. It's very much so, and it's one of those situations where you could try to pivot away from him, but there are going to be very few options that are just as consistent or have the range at which he does. I would feel relatively confident in still keeping him, unless someone like Cameron Dicker gets dropped in your league, to which maybe you can pivot in that direction. Or someone has, maybe Tyler Loop is out there available, could go in that direction as well. Justin Hernandez says Steelers or Bears defense and Colts kicker or Bears kicker to replace Eddie Pinheiro. I would pick up the Colts kicker. And as for this week, I would go after the Steelers defense. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Austin Davis, we already took care of that. Joe, what's up? Says, I need a tight end. Do I drop Hawkins? Okay, I dropped Hawkinson. Should have been done like 7 weeks ago, but yes, good job, well done. Probably not 7 weeks ago. As soon as Carson Wentz lost the job because of the injury, that's when we should have known. Who should I pick up available on the waivers are Jawan Jennings, Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, Komet. Yeah. Theo Johnson and Jawan Jennings are your most valuable two. As of right now, Jawan Johnson. As for the current circumstance, I would prefer to pick up and play Theo Johnson this week, assuming Jackson Dart is back. Otherwise, Jawan Johnson's your next best option. Raymond T says, safe to drop Evans or continue to hold. I mean, I would assume that Evans is projected to come back by hopefully week 16. If you don't believe you're going to make it to week 16 at that point, then sure, you can go ahead and position yourself to drop him. But I do think he'll be back by the fantasy playoffs, hopefully. So if you do need the IR spot, drop him. If you don't need the IR spot, then just keep him on roster. Dolph says, traded Dowdle and Achane for Gibbs and Buka because of bye weeks, win or loss. I think you have to. That's well done. Again, even though I do believe that Achane and Gibbs, I do believe Achane is more valuable because of the rest of season schedule. I think being able to get Gibbs and Buka that will help you for the rest of your season and help you make the fantasy playoffs is the correct choice. So well done. Fairbairn practice in full, beautiful. We can make that pivot. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. Because he is one of the best kickers in the National Football League for like the last 5 years. And prior to him going down with the injury, was one of the best, if not, I think it was top 3 in terms of fantasy points per game on average. So yes, if he is available, we can make that swap. Is Brissett a better play than JJ or Caleb? I would say yes, absolutely. He's a better play than JJ McCarthy and Caleb Williams this week. Thank you. Which tight end stream? Schultz, Taylor, Loveland, Fannin, Strange, or Fant? Not interested in Fant. I'm not really too interested in Fannin or Loveland or Taylor or Schultz. I mean, at this point, I think Brenton Strange could be the answer, but it depends on his practice participation. Mason Taylor could also be the answer now that we have a quarterback switch there. But ultimately, if I had to trust one, I'd probably just re-roll Schultz back out there. Thank you. Because, of course, his combination effectively with Davis Mills lately. All right, let me see if Michael had a question here. Okay, yeah, so that was Michael's question. We're good to go. Thank you. Magnum, what's up? Says questions in the chat, please. Thank you very much, Magnum. All right, says low-key fan. Low-key? Why do you have to be low-key fan? Why can't you just be a fan? 10-team league. Thank you very much. Says 4-point per passing touchdown. Playoffs were clinched. I'm 9-2. Purdy, Bijan, Brian Robinson Jr. Bijan Robinson, excuse me. Henry, Adunze, Abuka, Kittle, Dowdle, Flex. We have Loop Patriots bench consisting of Jaden Daniels, Kenneth Walker, Benson, Pearsall, Sutton, Tez, Warren, and the Buccaneers defense. Okay. So what exactly is your question? I will wait for your question, Magnum. Thanks, man. Because now I have the content. Kyle says, can you check Discord, brother? Yeah. Let me go ahead and let me open up my Discord on my phone. See what you have here, brother. Kyle says, what would you rather? Okay, so it says, who would you want after waivers so I can grab them after? In terms of wide receiver after waivers, I mean, again, I would probably, looking at what's available in your league at wide receiver, there's not really much either. I would probably say, like, of those available options, it would be like Yoshi Voss or Greg Dortch. Those would be my top two options to go pick up in that circumstance. In regards to the next question you had, it says, do you think I should drop more than $20 on Wilson? I feel like if you, based on what you represented here, it says somebody spent 40 to 45 on RJ Harvey, but 25 in Algier. If someone spent 25 in Algier, there's a pretty good likelihood in which it's going to require like $21 to get Wilson, to which I think 20 is probably worth it in this circumstance. And then in regards to kicker, with your situation, who do you have at kicker this week? You have Reichard. In terms of the Reichard potential, let me see, is Badgley available here? Haversick is available. Badgley, go pick up Badgley. Spend like $5 on him. Thank you. Appreciate it, Kyle. All right, let's see here. Let me go back to Magnum's question. There's no question here, Magnum. What is the question? Am I just answering who I'm playing in the flex in this circumstance, or is Dowd on my flex? Appreciate it, though. Let me know. Okay, continuing on, we had Homer, who says, traded away Chase Brown for Pittman. Thoughts on rest of season outlook for both? I have Lamar, Henry, Gibbs, McConkey, JSN, and Warren, Tet and Judkins on the bench. I mean, in terms of rest of season value, I do think that Pittman Jr. is a little bit more reliant on touchdowns than a Chase Brown, who doesn't score touchdowns but doesn't need to. In terms of rest of season value, if Burrow does come back and play the final 6 games of the season, I think Chase Brown is going to be more valuable. But I really, really do like the upcoming schedule for the Colts receivers for the fantasy playoffs. They, in fact, have one of the easiest schedules, taking on Seattle, San Francisco, and Jacksonville. So I'd be pretty happy with the potential of having Pittman there. I have no problem with the trade at all. And I think in terms of what your roster looks like, I mean, you should be in a really solid position to make a run in the playoffs, considering the volume of depth you have and the players you currently have on roster. Thank you. Homer says full PPR. Yeah, in a full PPR, I mean, again, Chase Brown's receiving workload makes it a little bit tough, but I think Pittman is still a great option there. That'll is flex, sorry. Yeah, but what's your question? I'm so confused, brother. Like, am I just giving your thoughts on my team, on the team? Like, clinch the playoffs. Yeah, I just don't see the question. That's my only thing. Like, am I answering who I'm starting ultimately? Like, or is it just, thoughts on the team? If it's thoughts on the team as a whole, Purdy's got a great schedule ahead. I mean, technically speaking, the 49ers have the Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts, and Chicago Bears in the fantasy playoffs. Should be fantastic. Bijan should be great, hopefully. Fingers crossed, of course, throughout that span of time, in which, of course, they will have Kirk Cousins as their starting quarterback, which is a little bit sketchy, but still worth it to roll against Tampa Bay, Arizona, and the Los Angeles Rams. In regards to Henry, fantastic. Adunze, hopefully going to be more consistent. Abuka is going to be fine. Kittle's going to be great. Dowdle's going to be great. Loop in the Patriots. Again, you may want to swap around with your Patriot defense by the time you get to the playoffs, but for now, still decent this week. I mean, you have the Buccaneers for the fantasy playoffs. You're pretty much set, brother. I don't think you need to make any crazy moves here. You're set with your lineup as is, as it stands, unless you want to go and try to take advantage of teams in your league that are missing, Jamar Chase due to suspension, or Waddle this week because of the bye, and they're willing to sell low on them because they need to get victories this week, and you can send away an Adunze and bring in a Jamar Chase, something like that. Crazy. Thank you. Emily Doyle says, which defense would you rather have rest season, Eagles or Colts? I'd rather have the Eagles. Thank you. That defense is playing at an absolutely nuclear level. Full PPR, what is the strategy in terms of building a super team? Yeah, your super team will be taking advantage of people's misfortune. So basically, you want to try to go after teams in your league that are obviously dealing with the fact that they have Ladd McConkey, Jalen Waddle, or Jamar Chase not playing this week. In the event in which you can trade for those players, because you have Bijan and Henry, you don't need to go for a running back unless someone in your league has Achane and they're willing to give away Achane for Bijan Robinson, and I would go ahead and make that move. But in the event in which you can go after those wide receivers, I think that's a definite necessity for your team to improve upon that, rather than running back and tight end, who are solid and solidified for the rest of the way. In comparison to wide receiver, which is a little bit sketchy with the Dunze and his inconsistencies and ups and downs. That would be my immediate thought process on how to make a super team from your circumstance. Thank you. Alrighty, let's see here. We're going to answer a couple more questions, then we're going to go ahead and head out. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel once again on this wonderful Tuesday. Again, earlier today, I did drop my top 36 running back rankings. If you guys weren't able to check that out earlier today, I'll go ahead and share it here. In regards to my top 36 for this week, again, rankings are always subject to change between now and Sunday. We're going to get a lot of information in regards to players like Bucky Irving at 17, Kareem Hunt at number 20, Jaylen Warren at 23. Again, primarily because do we know whether or not Bucky Irving is playing as of today? No. But if he does end up playing, we'll get a better understanding. Kareem Hunt, is Pacheco going to play? Warren, is he going to be healthy by the time we get to Sunday? And subsequently, the rankings of Sean Tucker, Bashal Tutin, Gainwell, ineffective nature to the overall situations as the week develops, and whether or not we are going to have more information regarding their status as we go forward. Again, like I mentioned before we close out today's live stream, again, if you guys want to go ahead and get... What the heck is this? That's not the right thing. What I was going to say is, if you guys want to go ahead and ask any and all questions outside of the live stream, you can go ahead and check out the Patreon. Again, that is something in which is available. You can get rankings every single Thursday and Sunday for the remainder of the season. For those of you who are interested, of course, you can take advantage of the opportunity today by checking that out. Link down in the description. Otherwise, of course, in regards to the future of this season, you can always go ahead and sign up today using code Andrew via Betr. Get those overall ranking sent from my email directly to yours every single Sunday morning by signing up today using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of $10, and then making a single first time play minimum of $1. You'll be eligible of getting these rankings. All you have to do is be eligible via the map, and of course you'll also get a free $10 and a free play as soon as you do so using code Andrew. Thank you. Okay, a couple more questions that we're going to head out here. Daniel Lundquist says, best teams for defense for weeks 15 through 18. I would say Tampa Bay and New Orleans are probably the most available defenses. Otherwise, I would like to roll with teams like Houston and, Seattle, Philly as teams that I would roll in that circumstance. Thank you. Let's see here. Jeezy says, need a receiver, only 3 waivers, picks left. Okay. Bijan for Emeka Ibuka and Chase Brown. Don't want to waste trying waivers until playoffs, 3 transactions left. I'm okay with this trade. That's fine by me. If you need receivers, I think this gets the job done, and I think it's actually quite a solid haul for what you're going to give. Thank you. Mo, what's up? Says Falcons defense, which I don't trust, or the Rams this week. Also, is it worth trying to pick up Tucker or Gainwell with a backup quarterback? As of right now, I would pick up Tucker. In regards to the potential of, Tucker is just in case anything happens to Bucky. You pretty much have the keys to the kingdom there. In regards to the potential of the Falcons defense or the Rams defense this week, I would probably rather play the Falcons defense ultimately, because I don't really trust, even though the Rams defense is really good, Tampa Bay's got, they've got some pieces there to make some noise. J Patch says, should I use my waiver priority on Emmanuel Wilson or Sean Tucker? My starters are Henderson and Montgomery. I have Harvey, but on a bye. As of right now, if you were going to theoretically use it, you would utilize it on Wilson to then play him over Montgomery this week. Otherwise, Sean Tucker is pretty much only there for handcuff purposes if Bucky Irving is to play this week. Simon for President says, thanks, Andrew, for the help. Been watching videos since 2015. True GOAT. Brother, I haven't been making videos since 2015. So I don't know who you were watching back then, but that wasn't me, Simon. All right, let's see here. L. Oliveras says, Dobbs, Pierce, Wilson, Worthy, 3 of 4 wide receivers. If Jacobs doesn't go and I don't get Wilson, Green Bay running back, on waivers, then I need 2, and I'd start Emmanuel Wilson or Jacobs. Okay, so first and foremost, Dobbs, Pierce, Wilson, Worthy. 3 of the 4. I would play Dobbs, Pierce, and Wilson. Worthy's not going to play. So then at that point, if you can get Emmanuel Wilson, you'd play him over Jacobs effectively. But in the event in which you do get Emmanuel Wilson and you can play Wilson along with this group, then yeah, it would be these 3. Assuming this is this Wilson and this is not like a Michael Wilson. If it's Michael Wilson, then you play Pierce, Michael Wilson, and Emmanuel Wilson. Thank you. And Immature says 7-4, won't win this week because of multiple guys on bye. Do I send away Flacco plus Nico Collins plus Breece Hall for Jamar Chase? Guy with Chase is 4-7, needs to win now. Yeah, I would. In the event in which losing Nico Collins and Breece Hall doesn't ruin your season, I think this is a great haul in exchange for it. I know that giving away Breece Hall with the upcoming schedule he has is a little bit of a tough situation. So in the event in which, again, you have enough running back depth to justify it, I think it's worth the trade. Okay, you said Michael Wilson. So yeah, in the event in which you do have Michael Wilson and Alec Pierce and Emmanuel Wilson, those would be the 3 that I start. Thank you. Anthony Marr says, see chat, thanks. Okay, let's see what you got here, brother. Go into the chip. Okay, let's see what you have here. Whenever you go ahead and send that in, I'll go ahead and answer that, and then we'll close out today's live stream. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel, as you guys typically do on a weekly basis. Again, I wanted to go ahead and just get through a quick waiver wire live stream. as we typically do on Tuesdays, and hopefully we can set ourselves up for success going forward. Anthony Barr, with the final question of this evening, says the following. 10-team Superflex, 0.5 PPR. Roster is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jackson Dart, JJ, Rashee Rice, Marvin Harrison, Jonathan Taylor, Judkins, Jalen Warren, Swift, Tyler Warren, Bowers. IR is Reed Benson. Would you trade Justin Jefferson and Swift for Bucky Irving? In a Superflex format where you're going to play Josh Allen, Mahomes, Rashee Rice, and then theoretically, here's the issue. Who's going to be your wide receiver 2 rest of season? Is your wide receiver 2 rest of season going to be Marvin Harrison? If that's the case, I don't make this trade. I don't want it. I would rather have Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver 2 rest season than making a trade for Bucky Irving. Because I think what Jonathan Taylor and Warren can provide in terms of rest and Swift rest of season purposes is enough. If you could get away with giving away like Marvin Harrison, Judkins, and Swift and getting Bucky, then sure, I'd make the trade. But having to give away Justin Jefferson is not worth it to me at all. And if that's not Justin Jefferson and that's J.J. McCarthy, then yes, you make the trade and you get rid of J.J. McCarthy. But if it's Justin Jefferson, I'm keeping what you have because I don't trust Marvin Harrison in the fantasy playoffs. As their 3 matchups takes on Derek Stingley in the Houston Texans, A.J. Terrell in the Atlanta Falcons, and then, of course, DJ Turner in the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't like those matchups at all. Would you pick up Pierce for wide receiver 2? Absolutely. I would pick up Pierce. Okay, so at that point, if you pick up Pierce for wide receiver 2, is it worth it at that point? At that point, sure, you can make the trade. But it's still very sketchy. It becomes a little bit of like a tough scenario to where like if you're going to guarantee make the playoffs, sure, we can make the move. But it's a lot of risk there, brother. A lot of Bucky risk. But I don't mind it at that point if you have a little bit more solidified wide receiver depth than Alec Pierce. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all. That's going to be it for me tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 36 or probably top 40 wide receiver rankings. It depends. We'll see. Depending on, again, there's a couple teams on bye and a couple players, of course, suspended out with injury. So maybe top 36. I'll be back tomorrow with that video. And, of course, live streaming tomorrow night. If you guys have any questions, be sure to swing on by. Of course, like I mentioned before, if you guys want those rankings every single Sunday, you can check out Betr. Or, of course, you check out the Patreon to be able to get those questions answered tonight, technically. And, of course, get rankings every Thursday and Sunday. All right, guys, that's going to cover for me. Have a great rest of your Tuesday night. That's what we're going to call it. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace. see Alex Ruiz sent in a question to close out the live stream with a final super chat of this evening. He says, Otten, Schultz, Theo, or Henry this week. Of those available options, I think Cade Otten is the most valuable. I think for rest of season purposes, Theo Johnson is the next man up. So in terms of this week alone, I would probably go Otten 1, Theo 2, Schultz 3, Henry 4. In the event in which we're talking about rest of season, it would go Theo 1, Schultz 2, Henry 3, Otten 4. But as long as Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin are out, Cade Otten has immense value, and that has been demonstrated outside of the game this most recent week in which they've taken on Buffalo, which is the toughest tight end matchup. So for now, Otten this week. Otherwise, for rest of season, it's Theo Johnson. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Peace.